Shameless Feminine Speaks with your host, modern-day shaman and sister to all, Rebecca Haywood, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shameless Feminine Speaks, the only show on LA Talk Radio for all you women, men, ladies, and misfits ready for the feminine re-evolution. Yeah, I'm your host, Rebecca Haywood, and I'm joined with my shameless Sheena co-host.
We never know what shameless Sheena is going to do next.
No, this is true.
It's true.
Or whether she's going to broadcast pants on or pants off.
Oh, I do have pants on tonight, shoes off. Let me take my shoes off. I like to do radio with my feet touching the ground or whatever a reasonable facsimile of the ground is at this point. And I do have my shirt unbuttoned, but I'm going to button that up now for you all. It's a reverse striptease. Well,
it kind of works with our topic tonight.
That's what happens when I start to strip. People go, no, put it on. Put it on.
Well,
so I'm putting it on.
We might have to do the reverse striptease and the striptease tonight, with our topic being the virgin and the slut.
Okay.
Do you love this title?
I love the title.
The virgin.
I can't wait to
and
see
the
where
slut.
we're going with this.
Yeah. So, as always, you all know I like to tie in. I'm taking y'all through a process here. And, in our Loyalty Begins With You episode, I took you through a beautiful recommitment ceremony with yourself. And we walked through each aspect of your being, your body, your emotions, your heart, your voice, your mind, and of course, all connected with spirit. And so we've been kind of playing with the body aspect and really focusing on some of the ways that maybe we're going against our body, not quite being so loyal to our body. And, to me, that loyalty with my body is really allowing it to be the animal that it is, right? And, well, we're talking animalistic here. We got to talk sex a little bit, right?
Okay.
Or a lot of it.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Let's talk about you and me.
Oh, I love that you know that.
That's right.
Okay, now you're officially my favorite person.
So, and, in, I can't remember which episode it was. It was Sacred Sensual. So then we carried through from Shameless Beauty, which was an aspect of body, right? Body image, shameless beauty. Then we walked into Sacred Sensual, where I guided you through another meditation, really walking through each of the senses of your body and using them as a direct experience of life around you, right? This wasn't about sensuality, i.e. sexuality, right? Often sensuality is misconstrued as sexual. And as Sheena knows, and as I have shared on this show, my sensuality is often misinterpreted as sexual. And yet really, I am just really in that communion with life, with spirit, with my body, right? Through all of those senses, through all of those channels of my body. And so then, not last week. We skipped last week. It was my birthday last week. I missed you all, except I had a really wonderful birthday. So I enjoyed my night off, but I did miss you all. So the week before my birthday, our last show was with Betsy Chassie, who was the director, producer, and co-writer of What the Bleep Do We Know? And, I invited her in because in that Sacred Sensual, there was that question raised, or really that directive given to you by me of follow your pleasure. And yet that is, kind of a tricky one, right? How do we decipher true pleasure from kind of that manufactured pleasure, that arena of addiction, right? And so that's why I really brought Betsy on last week to really talk about emotional addiction, right? The title of the show was What's Your Addiction? So she really explained the science, the biology of emotional addiction in our body, how those emotional addictions form and how we can start to recede those channels in our body, between our body and our mind, those neural pathways. This really ties into that, of course, because we are talking pleasure when we talk sex, right?
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, if we're doing
That's
it right. If we're doing it right.
Sadly, I think it's not that way for everybody, but that's what we hope.
Yeah, and that's really, the focus of tonight's show, the virgin and the slut. That title to me really denotes the shame that our society holds, on sex. It really, despite how far we think we've come, how much we really think we've evolved sexually in the sexual revolution, right?
Yeah.
There's that sexual shame actually really hasn't evolved that much. We've simply kind of repackaged it. If anything, we've actually put our sexual shame more into hiding, right? And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's wonderful how much people are willing and free and given that permission by society to express themselves in various ways sexually now. There's a lot less taboo. And yet those holding the taboo or standing in the quote, what was once taboo, are now kind of shaming those who aren't willing to go into the taboo.
And I think there is, I think we have imposed more taboos on ourselves. They're just different taboos.
Yeah.
We don't have strange taboos around sexual exploration. We don't have the same taboos around, the spectrum of sexuality, the spectrum of gender, a little bit more of that, but to a certainly lesser extent than we did 30, 40 years ago. But we have a terrible taboo now of, I think it's almost come full circle in the fact that we shame each other for wanting to be free. Like it's not politically correct. Like, people feel like they have to self-impose chastity on themselves or, do that strange thing where you're like not going to climax to hold your spirituality in.
Semen retention.
I'm sorry. It's weird.
Semen retention.
Shameless
It's
Sheena
a thing.
is saying.
It's a thing.
It's weird. God doesn't care if you climax. Like, go for it. Spirit wants us to have a wonderful human existence and a wonderful spiritual existence. And I think a lot of people are fearful of taking that next step in service spiritually for fear that it now means they can't enjoy sex, they can't enjoy a bag of Doritos, they can no longer, free dive off a cliff. We're supposed to do all that stuff, including sex, and then also be spiritual beings. Your sexuality does not take away from your spirituality.
Right. It really, it comes down. There's this underlying wound, to our sexual shame, which I've said it before on this show. It's that original heartbreak, that original perceived separation from the divine, right? And as long as we continue to hold our animal, separate from the divine, then we are going to be worshiping that sexual shame to some degree, right? And therefore putting rules on ourselves of I'm allowed to come, I'm not allowed to come.
I mean,
sex is pure or not pure. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I played nun for quite some time, thinking that was the more spiritual approach,
Oh, to play nun? I'm kind of a nun now, but I just not on purpose.
Yeah, no, I basically took a vow of celibacy.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I have quite, yeah. Was it voluntary? That's the question, right?
Well, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I decided I wasn't going to get involved again unless it was with the right situation.
Yeah.
So yes, in that sense, yes. And I've never been like a one-night standy girl.
Yeah.
God love people who are. It's just not me. I'm totally about it.
Yeah.
It's just not my particular thing. And that's another thing with sexuality. You have to find what your thing is.
Yeah.
And not everybody's thing is. We have different levels of what we want. And it's not that I'm scared to be free or that I think it's a bad thing to have a one-night stand. It's that I know emotionally with the way I process, I don't want to get that close to somebody that I don't know.
Yeah. Well, do we have to pick just one thing, Sheena?
No. As many things as you want.
We don't have to pick one thing.
No.
You heard it right here.
You can have as many things as you want. Pick a thing and do it.
And those things can evolve and change with you. There's nothing, to me, there's nothing wrong if you want to practice semen retention, that you think that's really preserving your prana, that's where you're at. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Please do that. I said it was weird.
This is the thing. Speaking with my dear friend Tatiana, who I believe is going to come on the show next week.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, talk about like
semen retention.
No,
I want to know more about
Tatiana and semen retention.
Yeah, can she tell us about it?
I don't know. Maybe we can ask her, but
she's the expert.
I don't think she's really a proponent of semen retention. I wouldn't say. What do you say, Tati? She's watching. She's gone. Nope. So the point is that it's not about one way or the other. In speaking with Tatiana, she said something really beautiful, and I'm sure I'm not going to say it the way you said it, Tati. about really honoring the individuality within our intimacy.
Right.
You know, that's really what makes it intimate. That's what brings the intimacy, is that, you know, you are that individual. I am this individual over here. We each have our own experience of pleasure, right? There, you know, you got your buttons, I got mine. And they might be in different places, right? Activated with different words, different music, different scents, different environments. You know, it's honoring that individuality, and that's truly what creates that intimacy, right? And really, to me, you know, sex, you know, it is a holy act. It is absolutely holy, and that does not deny that animal in me.
And it's okay to be both things at one time,
right?
Because we are a spiritual being and a mammal at the same time.
They
and it's
are
okay to honor both things and to join those things.
Right.
That's what makes us a joint sentient being.
Yes.
Is to take our spiritual self and also to take our again, you can sit in an ashram and eat a Tommy burger.
Ashram.
And it's okay.
An ashram.
An ashram. An ashram. Should I say it like that? It's okay. It's okay. You're still a spiritual person. It's totally okay.
Yeah. They are not separate. They are not separate. Just look at, you know, the bee to the enticing flower, right? Like the rain to the thirsty river. You know, these are our life merging, the fruit dropping, you know, and seeding the readied earth. Like, this is life in motion. This is life's way of making love. And, you know, it's so beautiful. And we don't look at that and go, oh, I can't look at the bee. Oh no, turn my eyes away.
So what we're saying is, feel free to drop your seed into the ready earth.
The ready earth.
Whenever you want.
Well,
ready
you know,
earth is ready to go for you.
I don't know about that one. Like maybe no seeds over here. Okay. I'm not looking to ready my earth for any seeds right now.
Not ready to sprout a new tree?
Yeah, no new trees coming over here.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it's beautiful, it's natural, it's wild, it's animalistic, and it's divine. It's all of it. And the more we actually embrace that animal aspect, you know, those of you who are like seeking that holy experience, guess what? You are going to have more of a holy experience.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about denying that animal. It's not about denying the nature. You're wild. You know, let your freak fly. Let your
freak flag go, my friend.
Yeah, let all of these lessons that we've given, especially in that sacred sensual, experience sex directly, right? Let go of that commentator in your mind that is telling you how you're supposed to look, how you're supposed to sound, how quickly you're supposed to come. You know, that you're supposed to take care of this boner. It's sitting there, right?
And not retend it, have retention.
Well, or maybe you are supposed
Retense
to, depending, you know, I don't know. But, you know, it's so beautiful when you can be in that never ending now, you know, in that never ending now where we're not seeking out the orgasm. We're not seeking out the consecrated purpose of, you know, conception. We're not seeking out merely feast of body and pleasure, possessing pleasure. We are in the moment of whatever is coming through this body, whatever is coming through that body, right? And really, the most beautiful experiences that I've had for myself, and when I say beautiful, I mean holy, and I mean holy. Holy with an emphasis on O. The most beautiful holy experiences that I have had are when I am so merged with myself. Okay? When I am so merged with myself, when it's not so much about seeking to merge with this other being, right? That happens organically, right? When I am merged with myself, and I have that urge to merge with my own pleasure, you know, with the expression of life, of spirit coming through this body, then like my pleasure is taken care of, right? There's no responsibility on the other end. Like they are not responsible for my orgasm. Breaking news.
Yeah.
Just as I am not responsible for theirs. There's something really beautiful in that. You know, practice that. You too will find that everlasting now, that never ending now. And it is such a beautiful, beautiful experience, okay? So coming back to shame, Okay, because we are going to be
We
talking
always come
sex
back to shame
for
here.
several shows here. So stay tuned in, because we are going to be just
Hold that beautiful boner right where it is.
yeah.
Now we're going to talk about shame.
Or don't hold it. I mean, whatever you want to do with it, right? It's your boner. I am not responsible for your boner.
I wish I was responsible for your boner at this point, but sadly I'm not.
So yeah, but I really wanted to dive into this shame and kind of the dichotomy that we're all in with this virgin and the slut, right? And, of course, you know me and that ancient feminine shame, right? So
Here we go with the shame.
Clearly, I would think this title is coming from that. It's a throwback to the ancient feminine shame, right? Where Eve was cast out of the garden, right? And reformed as the Virgin Mother, right? And I actually spoke a little bit about this in our mothering show, and actually tied it to mothering and to how we don't allow ourselves pleasure. And I was clear then. I'm not just talking about sexual pleasure, but guess what? Tonight I am talking about sexual pleasure. That was really made wrong, right? It was not okay. It was cast out of the garden. Not even just the pleasure associated with the sexual, but just that image of the sexual, the natural, beautiful image of woman, right? Of the feminine. And all of her glory and all of her naked glory, made to cover up, right? And essentially cast out of the garden, deemed the temptress, the seductress, right? And that aspect of like, oh no, look at what Eve did is still very much here in our society.
God, yes.
Okay. Women carry it against themselves. We carry it against each other, right? Like what happens when a man's attention is drawn, a man who's in a monogamous relationship, his attention is drawn to another woman.
Or any man's attention is drawn to a woman.
Right.
Every other woman in the room loses her stuff.
Right. And who, generally speaking, are those women mad at?
Yeah, at the other woman.
Exactly. Right. We're still blaming Eve. We're still casting her out of the garden for her beauty, for her sensuality, for her sexuality, for just her nature. Okay. And that really has to stop. We have to stop blaming each other as sisters. Okay. And men, to stop blaming your boner on us as well. Like take responsibility for your boner. Thank you very much.
Your boner's your business, dude.
It's
It's not my business.
Right.
I'm all about it, but as my mama used to say, put that thing away.
I really wish I knew your mother.
My mother, I will tell this story really quick. Because, we always had dogs, and my mom preferred male dogs to female dogs. So I guess that was her shaming Eve in the canine way. So, the dogs would lay around and, dog boners happen. And my mom would walk by and say, like, Bunky, put that thing away. And the thing would just suck back in. And I thought, wow, that's Scorpio. She could command boners to go away. It's amazing. Put that thing away. And it would back into its little sheath like it had never been.
Wow, I wish I had that power.
Right?
I mean, I do know some pressure points, having been a massage therapist.
One word, that was it. And so I was thinking that, put that thing away.
Dang, what was the word?
You would say, put that thing away.
Put that thing away.
Say, Bunky, put that thing away. And it would
put that thing away.
Back in. You knew exactly what she
meant.
meant.
That. Put that thing away.
Exactly. So the next time there's a strange boner in your face, you just say, dude, put that thing away. And watch it go away. Oh, okay.
All right. Well, I'll let you know how it all goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just say, send it to Sheena's house.
Send it to Sheena's house.
Send that thing to Sheena's.
She's ready for her involuntary vow of celibacy
to break my 6-year celibacy. Yeah, I'm ready. I think I'm ready to break that 6-year celibacy. Sure.
So yeah, we all kind of cast Eve, we blame Eve, and there's we've reformed her, we reform her within ourselves into the Virgin Mother. I see it quite prevalently in spiritual communities, right? And granted, there's definitely the like, look at me, I'm so sexually free, like look at all the orgies I can have, and look at what I can do in public, or I mean, gosh, I've been to some festivals. There was one actually in particular, I'm not going to name it because I don't want to give it a bad name, and I've heard it's evolved since then. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. And this was like, I had already done my journey, walked through sexual shame. I had nothing left to prove. Okay. I was a free woman, and I was there with my boyfriend, and we went to this place. It was like, there were lots of different places at this festival. And this one was like couched as like a fun house.
Okay.
And it was like something about your senses, but nothing about sex. So I just thought, oh, cool, fun house and like senses. Like we're going to like, explore our senses. Cool. Well, like first out the gate, the woman that was like leading the tour through the fun house was, kind of picking which groups would go through and grouping the people together. And she insisted that me and my boyfriend, we weren't allowed to go together.
Sure. Right.
Fine. I'm a big girl. I don't really like the fine.
It's
whatever.
a mind screw already.
Yeah. Like no big deal. And I'm in the first group. My boyfriend's in the group behind me. So my group goes in and it's all like dark and it's kind of this like labyrinth of a maze. And like all of a sudden there are these hands coming through these sheets. The like labyrinth was made of sheets. There's like hands coming through the sheets, like groping me. Then somebody's like kissing me, sticking their tongue down my throat.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. I felt completely violated. There was no consent asked or given before this. And, I basically ran out of there and ended up having to wait about 45 minutes for my boyfriend to actually emerge. So he had a grand old
beautiful
time.
Boner.
His boner might have been taken care of. I don't know. But
isn't that a shame that as humans, especially in this country, where we're so descendant of puritanical beliefs, that culturally, that we feel like we can't have actual intimacy with somebody who's right in front of us, but we have to sort of get our kicks by going through a fun house where people randomly force French kisses on us. It's like, that's so strange. But then the same people who want to go and do that over and over again, you get them in a room with somebody where it's just the two of you and they completely don't have any idea how to sexually relate to people.
Yeah, the intimacy.
We're much more comfortable with forced sex, uncomfortable sex, being put in an uncomfortable position, people getting rapey with us than so many of us are with just actual full-on passionate intimacy.
Yeah.
That's when we lose it. And that's a shame.
Yeah, it really, we need to get back to that place of intimacy, which requires us to get back to that place of intimacy with ourselves, to really let your sexual relationship begin and end with you, just like everything we say here, the most important relationship you have is the one that you have with yourself, right? And that's true with sex, even though we can be so distracted by there's this other naked body there,
right?
Right? And yet
which is great.
Yeah, which is wonderful, or maybe more than one body there, and it still begins and it ends with you, right? And I shared that story because this was sort of somewhat of a spiritual festival kind of gathering, and it was really
we all know what it was,
all about freedom.
It's
and
very nice of you not to name the name, but we all know what it is.
Well, I've been told it's evolved since then.
Yeah, I've been told it's evolved for the worse.
Okay, well maybe that's true, but I hope that it's woken up. That I hope that at least some of you have woken up to that intimacy, to that place of like there's nothing wrong with the funhouse. Don't get me wrong, but as some of my friends say, consent is sexy. I go to ecstatic dance here in LA. I love it. And consent is sexy. That is the beginning. That is that bridge to intimacy, that consent. That is that bridge between my experience and your experience, right? So, I share that not just to share about consent, but about that intimacy and also about how we have kind of reverse tabooed our sexual shame.
Yeah,
right.
And if you want to do that, if you want to go somewhere and people force kisses on you and grab your boobs out of a wall, if that's your thing, then I'm all about you having that. But I think that it's sad that that kind of lack of intimacy makes people much more comfortable sometimes than real intimacy. I think it's great we become more sexual as a culture. I want to make sure we don't lose our intimacy.
Right. I mean, I get the mystery thing, I
Sure.
get that. I totally get that. And yet, if you're one of those that like requires that mystery, that requires the new all the time, the exotic all the time, really check in with yourself about your level of intimacy with yourself and your willingness really to open yourself intimately with another, because that can carry you just as far, if not farther, right?
Sure.
Into that pleasure. And so, that's all I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with the mystery. There's nothing wrong with sensual or sexual, let's just call it what it was, fun houses.
That's the first one that's a new one on me. I've never heard of that before. That's fantastic.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with any sexual expression.
No.
That is the point. There is nothing wrong with any of it. Just check in with yourself. Like, where are you in that relationship with yourself? Where are you in relationship with your pleasure? Okay. I mean, even some people require pain to get their pleasure.
Sure.
Right?
Okay. If that's your thing, whatever floats your boat.
Nothing wrong with it, but check in with yourself. Where are you at in that? Are you being truly intimate with this body, with your animal, with your divine creature? Are you truly being intimate with yourself in that? Or is this another means of shaming yourself, right, into that sexual place?
Well, and if you have different things that are really your kinks, and I grew up, in the rock and roll music scene and then on the Howard Stern station, so I've seen it all and done it all, and it's all happened in front of me on the air. It's all sat on my lap. It's great if those are the things that you're into, and a lot of people have different levels of kink and intensity that they're into in a kink way. And I've seen it all. I've been there. I've been to the sex clubs, but just make sure that you also know how to be an intimate being, because it's important that you not lose your intimacy in that. You can still go and do all that, and that's fun, but make sure you also know what intimacy means to you,
Right.
so that doesn't become a mask that you wear so that you never have to open up to yourself intimately.
Right.
Because it's an easy trap to fall into.
Exactly.
And then you feel like something's always missing. It's the same way that many of my friends that have empathic and psychic gifts cover up for it by drinking too much and smoking a lot of marijuana. And they're trying to blanket. They don't want the real soft, tender parts of them to be seen, so they blanket it. And sometimes getting involved in really, interestingly out there sexual rituals can be the same kind of thing. Or it could be you have a fantastic intimate relationship with yourself or whomever else you have one with, and then you guys like to go to the sex club and get a little crazy. Well, fantastic, as long as you know where your intimacy lies.
Yeah. The key word is intimacy. I love that you used the word mask. And, all I would add to that is just again, drop into your body. Are you dropped in, right? Because this is your temple, right? This is what we spoke about with shameless beauty and with that vow, that recommitment ceremony to our body. This is your temple. And it is sacred, no matter how you're expressing. It is absolutely sacred and holy. It is your sacred space. Be in that sacred space, and then sure, let your freak flag fly.
Sure.
But don't use that freak flag to pull yourself out of your body, okay? To pull yourself out of the feels, because man, you're missing out. Okay? So virgin, slut, I mean, gosh, there's so much we can cover today just with this title, The Virgin and the Slut, right? I mean, I don't know if it's a common expression, but what is it? Like the men want the virgin out in public and the slut at home, right?
Exactly.
And whatever, that's fine, but not really fine, right? I mean, when we're expecting our partner to put on that mask, here we go, the mask again, put on that mask to show purity for some reason, and if for some reason of taboo, right? That somehow that purity denotes their loyalty to you, their faithfulness to you. I mean, I've been in relationships with men who were very comfortable with my beauty and with my sensuality and my sexuality, and were proud to walk down the street with me, even if my cleavage was showing, they were more proud. This was no shame on them. And I've also been in relationship with men who wanted me to button it up.
Really?
That weren't comfortable with that.
Like in the 1920s or recently?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 1920s. Come on now.
I just can't imagine any man saying button it up. I mean, that's to me, that's so strange.
Well, those words weren't used, but I was shamed. I was accused of seeking out the sexual attention of other men.
Okay.
And really it was hilarious because this particular man that I'm referencing, I really shifted what I was wearing. I started wearing makeup for him, not for other men. I was really trying to kind of up level my game because he was, kind of a fine gentleman, or so I thought. So I was really trying to up level my game, and there I was, like, chastised for it and accused of, seeking out that attention from other men. And although that is definitely a dynamic, and that is something that we all have to get honest with ourselves about how we use sexuality, right? How we use our sexuality to get love and attention from people around us, right? To manipulate men or to manipulate our partner or, to get a job, right? Give a job, get a job, right? Definitely we have to get honest with ourselves about that. But at this point in this relationship with that man, like, I had already walked through that ages ago, and if anything, I was so happy to be in that place of freedom with myself, to be embracing my beauty and my sensuality and my sexuality, to not be afraid, to not be afraid of this vessel of my temple, and to not be afraid of the boners.
Your beautiful boner.
Yeah, like I wasn't responsible for them anymore, and that was such a relief to me. Like, there was nothing that I did wrong. There was nothing that I now had to kind of fix or that I was obligated to in some way. And so, it is important for us to be honest about that aspect of how we do use our sexuality and how we may put that out in front of us as a mask, again, to avoid that intimacy or to feel some semblance of power over, right? And yet, kind of moving back in my timeline, when I first showed up to Sarita's doorstep, like my life, my little journey with Sarita really kind of moved from the virgin through the slut and beyond. Okay.
What is beyond the slut?
Oh, well, she's like all
super
of it.
Slut?
She's super slut.
Slut girl?
Super slut.
Super slut girl.
She's all of it and she's none of it, baby.
Okay.
You know what I mean? She's all of it and she's none of it. She's not ruled by it.
I need to drink something on that.
Oh yeah. So yeah, when I showed up at Sarita's doorstep, now you may or may not know, if you're just tuning in, my history of sexual trauma. So when I showed up at my grandmother and teacher's doorstep, Madre Sarita, I was riddled with sexual trauma. And yet I thought I was free from it because I was flexing my muscle in the face of it. I was, the survivor, and, I was stronger than that. And I had explored sexually to try and, get my power back there. And, in leading up to Sarita and having my spiritual calling, what I took that spiritual calling was like, oh, I need to get really spiritual. I need to get serious about this spiritual stuff because I'm supposed to find my teacher, which was Sarita. So in preparation, this is when I did my vow of celibacy. And that was my way, I thought, of getting closer to God, of purifying myself in preparation for this teacher, in preparation for this spiritual path that somehow that sexual being inside of me wasn't holy. And so it was really beautiful. I show up at Sarita's doorstep, and one of the shamanic cleansings that she did, and that I still do today, it's called an egg cleansing. And it's a cleansing and it's a reading. You basically rub an egg on somebody's body, and it's magnetic, this egg. It's polarized. It's a living being. So it absorbs the energy from your being, from your body, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and then you crack it into a glass of water and you can read it like an x-ray. And so she cracks my egg into a glass of water, and my yolk is covered in these sinewy cobwebs. Yeah, just covered in these like white sinews. And she says, Mija. She slaps my knee. She always said that. Mija, how long has it been? And like, this was hilarious because she was speaking Spanish. I didn't know Spanish yet. And so her son, Jaime, was translating, who is like a father to me. So essentially my spiritual father is translating for me what my spiritual grandmother, 87-year-old spiritual grandmother, is saying to me. How long has it been? And I'm going, oh no. And Jaime's blushing. I'm going, there's no way this 87-year-old grandmother is asking me how long it's been since I had sex. Sure enough, that's what she's asking. And I told her. And, again, she slapped my knee and she said, Mija, this is not good for your body. Sex is good for your body. There is nothing wrong with it, right? It is consecrated by God. And it not just for procreation, but for pleasure, for your pleasure. She points to me, your pleasure. She says, I have 13 children. Where do you think they came from? So at this point, both Jaime and I are fully blushing, and the only one in the room not blushing is the 87-year-old grandmother with 13 children. So, I love that my spiritual journey, like the doorway, the doorstep that was like that threshold that I crossed was, with this 87-year-old grandmother basically telling me to go have sex. That's what she said. You need to go out and go have sex. Your body is not healthy because you have been repressing that in your body. You haven't been allowing that flow of life to move through. She could see that in my egg, and I'm sure she could see it on me in my energy force. So, yeah, okay, Grandma,
I can't wait to have my egg cleansed.
Yeah.
Probably has yellow police tape. Caution, do not cross all over the yolk.
Yeah.
But I do agree with the idea of celibacy bringing you closer to God. But it's not celibacy that brings you closer to God. Because I'll tell you about my 6-year journey of celibacy. I'm using finger quotes because I haven't been completely celibate, but I haven't had sex with anybody. You do get a closer connection to God and also to yourself when you're not stuck in all of the minutia of desperately trying to get into a relationship or make someone love you. Mm-hmm. Because that energy comes in and sort of bungs up. It knocks you off your path. It bungs your clear connection to God up. It gunks your chakras up. I don't think it's so much about the sex itself as it is the way that we compromise and lose ourselves in desperation for someone to love us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure how I would recoin that phrase celibacy, but it's beautiful. And what you're saying is really that it's not about saying, cutting off that energy of sensuality or sexuality with yourself. It's about maybe drawing a line in the sand, not in the concrete, in the sand with others, of just ending that game. I think that was one of the many things that I loved about being married, and that commitment of monogamy that actually came very organically. I was in an open relationship before him, and wasn't sure that I was going to really be a monogamous person again. And it came so organically. There was nobody else that I wanted to be with. And I loved it. I really, really loved it.
I loved
like that whole game stops, that whole game stops. Yeah, your energy is not, it's still in the world. It's still engaged sensually and even sexually, but in a very different way, not about others, right? It's between you and you and God, and you and your partner. And it's really, really beautiful. So, celibacy, not celibacy, it all comes back once again to that intimacy with yourself. And certainly, I don't say don't take a vow of celibacy. No. If you know yourself that you're using sexuality to kind of swim above the fields, to swim above your body, you're using it as a mask. You're using it and you're still shaming yourself, or you're shaming others, or you're using it to manipulate, or it's a constant addiction. It's one of your emotional addictions. Then absolutely practice refrain for a while. But the key is, again, always, anytime I say the word refrain, on the other side of that is do not repress. Okay. It's not about shaming the sexuality and into celibacy. Okay. Really important. So, so beautiful threshold that I got to cross with Madre Sarita. And, my shame just broke open in that moment. It was so beautiful. There were so many tears shed. And my journey really, truly began then in earnest, in intimacy with myself, to heal that sexual shame. It wasn't an exercise anymore. It wasn't a show. It wasn't a flexing of a muscle against something that happened to me. It was an ownership of this body and of the sexual creature that I am, and taking that back for myself, empowering myself in it, not by some display of how free I am sexually to others, but in that very, very intimate relationship with myself.
Sure.
something I haven't told many. I haven't even put it in my book yet. Actually, I did write a chapter about it, but it got deleted when my computer crashed. And so I might have to rewrite this chapter because it was so good. But that night, after Sarita told me to go have sex, I had the best sex dream.
No.
And you'll never guess who my sex dream was with. Just take one guess.
I don't even want to say it out loud.
Jesus, baby.
Oh.
The big chief.
My goodness. That would not have been my first guess.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious because I very sheepishly told Sarita about it. And of course she said, oh my gosh, well, you might be pregnant.
I've never had a sex dream about Jesus.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in a religion, so I didn't have that. I think a lot of like very religious girls have the sex dream about Jesus all the time.
Yeah, it was a beautiful sex dream, and I shy to even call it a sex dream because it wasn't even about sex. It wasn't even about touching. It wasn't about skin to skin. It was sheer, beautiful, divine, blissful pleasure, and it was real. My body experienced it. It was real. So, you too can, go that far with your sexuality and the holiness of it. If you just allow that sexual shame to break open inside of you and start to own your body and own this domain of your sexual creature. Okay. And so, that was the threshold. Okay. Sarita, 87-year-old grandmother telling me to go have sex dream with Jesus. Yeah.
What if you're just tuning in right now?
Yeah, right. Well, I was just thinking.
An 87-year-old woman told me to go have sex with Jesus, so I did.
She said, "Don't just let Jesus into your heart, baby.
Just let Jesus in.
Just let Jesus in." But yeah. So and yet, there was still so much construct of Rebecca that had been built up against and to hide her sexuality. And, the tomboy, I've talked about that, kind of hiding my feminine behind that, just, hiding, this gorgeous body of mine. And so, as I was walking deeper across that threshold and started to study with Sarita's son, Miguel, Don Miguel Ruiz, 4 Agreements. And, it was really interesting to me because these women in the community, and I love them all dearly, they were just like taking me on like their little child of like wanting to just like help me break out of that shell. I think I told you about this on this show once of like, they dressed me up in some slinky black dress, and put makeup on me like it was supposed to make me really uncomfortable.
It sounds a little bit like the fun house at the spiritual place.
Yeah. But it wasn't. I mean, consent was given, asked and given, and it was a wonderful exercise. I had already actually done that exercise on my own, which was more uncomfortable by myself. I was very comfortable in a group of other women all dressing up. We were just playing dress up. There was no problem for me as long as I was like in a pack,
Sure.
But by myself, there was something different in that experience. So shameless feminine shape-shifting exercise. That's really hard to say. Shameless feminine shape-shifting exercise. Put on your spirit, put on your sexuality. Dress yourself up in that way that kind of challenges you. Like, is it the virgin that challenges you, that chaste side of your sexuality, or is it the slutty side that challenges you? Right? Like, even still to this day, like I'm still like, I'm good with classy, sexy. But like, there's a line that crosses there where I'm like,
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not quite comfortable.
Well, it might just not be who you are. Not everybody's the same person. We're all a little bit different.
Well, and there's daytime sexy and there's nighttime sexy.
There is?
Yeah. I mean, these are still rules in Rebecca's construct. Not that they make me very uncomfortable. I get over them quickly, but I notice them. So notice those rules in your construct about what's allowed, right? And what isn't allowed, where you're at, where you yourself are judging or letting yourself be judged. Because, really we only let ourselves be judged because there's already that judgment living inside of us that we're believing, right? So where you are judging yourself as being, too much of a virgin or too much of a slut, right? Where you are putting yourself on that versus just enjoying your beauty, just enjoying your sensuality, plain and simple. Right. So anyway, this journey, it was just really beautiful and kind of comical to me of these women really trying to help me break out of this shell that, I had already kind of done it. It wasn't a huge challenge for me. And yet, I remember this one woman saying to me, giving me the challenge. She said, I want you to embrace your Jessica Rabbit.
Okay.
And this was, I was pretty far along my journey, really, really had owned my shame and broke through that sexual shame. And so it was just kind of, it was a really perfectly channeled instruction from her, though, because Jessica Rabbit, from Roger Rabbit, and what her line is I'm not bad. I'm just drawn bad. Right?
I'm just drawn that way.
I'm just drawn that way. I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way. Right. And absolutely, she kind of nailed something that was still residing in me of kind of like, I'm not responsible for this skin that I'm in. Like there was still a part of me disowning, my curves, disowning my beauty, disowning my sexuality, my sensuality. Kind of still playing little girl inside of that. Okay. So it was a perfect instruction, which I followed and embraced and learned from. And so, fast forward to many, many, many years later. Okay. And I'm still studying with Miguel, and it's towards the end of my time in his dreaming mystery school. And this is actually a story that a dear sweet sister of mine told to me. I did not remember this. I still don't remember it. She said, yeah, you remember that time in dreaming where they pulled you up and used you as an example of how women use their sexuality to manipulate men. And I was like, really? I don't remember that. Not at all. She said, I can't believe you don't remember it. You were crying. You were just crying. And she said, I was so angry. I could feel that shame being put on you. And I knew you. I knew you as a sister, and I knew how integritous you were as a sister with my relationship with my man. There was nothing there that you deserved. And I was angry. I almost wanted to stand up and defend you. And then you did the most beautiful thing. And I'm like sitting there, we're on the phone. I'm like, what? What did I do? Because I really still don't remember this. She said in this guttural voice, you said, this is not what I am. This is not what I am. And, she shared that to me, and that moment dropped into me. That moment of remembering dropped into me. And she said, I was so proud of you and smiling, and yet the sad part was that I'm not sure that anybody else got it. I think they thought, oh, good girl. She got it. This is not what I am. I am not this sexuality that uses, manipulates men, But I can, even though I can't remember that story, what I can remember are all the years of shame, all the years of being shamed for just being beautiful, for being sensual, which sensuality is that experience of divine in my body, of being sexual, right? And even within that spiritual community, being invited to break out of my shell and own my sexuality. And now at the tail end of it, oops, now you've gone too far.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Sure.
Now you're too sexy. Now, now you're abusing this in some way. Now we're going to blame Eve. Right. So you found your Eve. You worked your way back from Virgin Mother back to Eve in her full glory back in the garden. And nope, now we're going to tell you to cover up.
Yep.
Right.
It's too much.
Right. So this is the full spectrum of the virgin and the slut. And, get honest with yourself. Get intimate with yourself. Return your sexual relationship to be between you and you. Honor your animal as divine, not as anything separate or less than. There is no hierarchy to animal, to divine. There is no hierarchy of chakras where this is more animalistic and this is more divine. It is all divine, people. It is all divine. All of your humanity is divine. Own it, be it, express it. Take a vow of celibacy if that's what you need to do to get clean about it and to get more intimate with yourself about it. And then know when to break out of that. Okay. The virgin to the slut and beyond, the super slut. I mean, I'll give you one quick tool if you have been shamed, slut shamed. Okay. Because this also happened for me. And, the best thing that you can do for any shame that is being placed on you was I turned around and I faced it. And, at first, what we want to do is when we're being judged for something that we believe that we're not, we want to fight that judgment.
Sure.
Like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm
Right.
not.
Argue.
I'm not.
Mhm.
I'm not. And, I realized, well, if I have such a need to defend myself against this judgment, then there's some part of me judging it, right? There's some part of me not necessarily believing that I am a slut, but judging that being a slut is a bad thing.
Sure. What if you are a slut?
Yeah, exactly.
Let your slut flag fly.
That was exactly, those
Do
were
it.
exactly the words. So what if I am a slut?
Sure.
Right?
Why?
So what does that mean? That I enjoy sex, that I'm promiscuous, that I'm sexy,
Just sex whenever you want.
that I'm sexually free?
Sure.
What does it mean? And all of the things that I came up with what it means to be a slut, there was nothing wrong with any of
No,
them.
of course not.
So, if you're being slut shamed or shamed for anything, just do that about face and go, so what if I am?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Find the divinity in it, find the perfection in it because, or let it find you because it exists. It is there. Okay. We are the virgin and we are the slut. Own them all. Own them all.
Mm-hmm.
And every shade of gray, in between. Okay. So gosh, we're out of time right now, but we love you all. As always, I am available for private sessions. Sheena is available for private sessions, and people can find you at
IamRaisingYourVibration.com and at SheenaMetalSpiritual.com. And if you just type in Sheena Metal, I'm the only one, you'll get me.
All right. And you can find me at RebeccaHaywood.com and pretty much everywhere on any social media as Shaman Sister. And stay tuned. We're going to keep diving and keep talking about
sexy,
sex.
my friends.
And I'm going to have my dear sweet goddess. Oh my God. Talk about a sexy woman. Tatiana is going to be here, I believe, next week. So I'm very excited to have her here and introduce her to you all. Yes, I will share her with you. Okay. I love you all. Until next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific. We love you.
We love you.
You're listening to Shameless Feminine Speaks with your host, modern-day shaman and sister to all, Rebecca Haywood, right here on LA Talk Radio.